From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
If. For such a small word, it packs a wallop. If I live to 100, if Social Security isn't enough, if my heart gets broken, if she says yes. We believe if should never hold you back. If should be managed with a plan that builds on what you already have. Together, we can create a personal safety net, a launching pad for all those brilliant ifs in the middle of life. You can call on our expertise and get guarantees for the if in life. After all, we're MetLife.
How does an investment manager stand the test of time? By taking a long view through all market cycles and keeping a close eye on risk. Franklin Templeton Investments, a solid approach to investing for over 60 years. Gain from our perspective.
Issue 1, America's freedoms.
First is freedom of speech and expression. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way. The third is freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understandings which will secure to every nation a healthy, peacetime life for its inhabitants.
As Americans gather around the family table this 2011 Thanksgiving, the words of the 32nd U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt bear new relevance. Unfortunately, not pleasant. The 2011 budget for food for the average American family is more stretched this year than at any time since 2008. The U.S.'s unemployment rate hovers around 9%. State by state, unemployment ranges as high as 13.4%. Little wonder that the Gallup polls and other polls report that 2 out of 3 Americans, 66%, are preoccupied with the economy as their number one concern. To give that winch of worry an extra turn, the world economy, not just the U.S. economy, crashed 4 years ago, 2007. We are living through the 4th year of that meltdown. So what are we to be thankful for this Thanksgiving? Answer: American resilience, the capacity to bounce back. Resilience. 61% of baby boomers, age 47 to 65, and 67% of Gen Xers, age 31 to 46, and 68% of Generation Y, mid to late 20s, believe that they, or any American, can still achieve the American dream. What is the American dream today? Has it been redefined as a result of the financial slowdown? Pat?
The American dream is the belief of each and every American growing up that if he studies and he works hard and he gets a job and he stays out of trouble, he will be able to build a good life for himself, his wife, his family. That life will get better and better gradually. There may be some bumps, but at the end of it, his children will have even a better life, John. The American dream is not being redefined, but what is happening is it is being postponed for tens of millions of Americans for the last 3 years. And for some Americans, I think it has been canceled.
Well,
I think it's been redefined in the sense that it's less materialistic, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think people are looking for more meaning, and I think there's more individuality, and this notion that you have to do better than your parents, I think that's fallen by the wayside, and I think a lot of young people may feel liberated. They don't necessarily have to follow their father's path and earn more, and they can find their own way. So, I mean, I don't think it's all that depressing, and I think the numbers you put on the screen show that people are redefining the American dream in a way that they feel comfortable with, and they're optimistic. I think that this is not a pessimistic society that we live in.
Beth, welcome.
Thank you.
What do you think about this?
Well, the dream has been redefined. It's no longer the singular, collective vision. It's much more personal. And the traditional milestones of the recent past, like a nuclear family. You have to be married, have children, get a college degree, own a home. Those have all gone by the wayside. Now it's much more meaning over materialism. Instead of financial success, it's about having a financial safety net. And instead of a nuclear family, it's about broader social relationships. So I think also it's really a new do-it-yourself American dream.
But it is an American dream.
Oh, it is. It's alive and well, and it's important to Americans of all ages.
What do you think of Beth's answer?
Well, I think that's fascinating, and I agree with it 100%. It's interesting. I think it's become a cliche to talk about the internet era, but the internet era has brought about more individualism and more individual abilities. To me, the American dream, in one word, is opportunity. That's what has kept more people wanting to get into this country than wanting to leave. And like Pat said, it's not a question of you having guaranteed results, but you have the opportunity to succeed if you work hard and get ahead. And much of our politics is shaped by whether or not that dream is really alive for people or not. That if you don't have equal education, can you have equal opportunity, for example? Issues like that.
I think everybody's making sort of the same point. What I've described is the traditional dream, but part of the American dream is freedom. It's the same thing that Clarence means when he says opportunity. The freedom to live the kind of life, the alternative lifestyle that you described and all the rest of it. Those have always been there, but there's no doubt more and more tens of millions are rejecting the traditional American dream for what they see as their own personal dream.
If Americans are remaining, and I think you indicated this, Beth, personally confident, notwithstanding the circumstance, personally confident.
Right.
How does this translate into whom or what they expect from a presidential candidate seeking that office within 12 months?
I think, again, it's whether or not that candidate is, first of all, on my side. No, that's a key political question. And so your vision of opportunity in this society, will this candidate improve that, or will they put some kind of handcuffs on it? That, in many ways, defines our politics.
In terms of whether or not he's got the policy that I like. But what about the characteristic of his personal resilience, and echoing that he is a man or a woman who can revive and stimulate the confidence that America has in itself?
Well, personal narrative is very important to voters, whether they're conscious of it or not. We all love, Abraham Lincoln in his campaign. They talk about the log cabin, and this guy was a rail splitter and all that. They really exaggerated a lot of that, but still, we love that kind of narrative.
But I don't see that happening in the 2012 campaign, because we've already been through Barack Obama's narrative. I don't think he can get too far in that, and I don't think if the nominee is Mitt Romney that he's going to be running necessarily on his narrative as the son of wealth. He's going to run more as somebody who can make government work again and be effective.
John,
can he rally the confidence of the American people, Mitt Romney?
Look, we have two political tribes in this country, and I think each tribe will be motivated by their standard bearer or by opposition to the other candidate. So I think there'll be no lack of enthusiasm when the presidential election gets underway.
You see any candidate out there who could do this? Herman Cain, I think, has the characteristic, and he has the bearing. John. There is a problem. He has a problem, and I'm not sure we can even include him in this list. But he does have that about him.
He's a motivational speaker, and that's what he should stick to.
Well, he's also had a considerable success with his
pizza.
Do you see anybody on the scene now that is going to preserve, and not only preserve, but revivify, re-energize the American dream? Who's running for president? Is it Barack?
No, there's only one man that's done that almost in our lifetimes, and that's Ronald Reagan. He did inspire the country. But no, and I don't think the American people expect the president to do all this for us.
I'm not talking about a motivational speaker. I'm talking about someone that they divine.
That's irrelevant.
This is the guy who can do it, or this is the gal who can do it.
What they want is a president who can get this economy up and growing and working again, get unemployment down, and the individuals and the fathers and mothers, they will decide then on the American dream.
Well, there we are with Buchanan, once again talking about money. Issue 2, economy faltering.
The recovery is close to faltering. We need to make sure that the recovery continues and doesn't drop back, and that the unemployment rate continues to fall downward.
In 2009 and 2010, Americans were optimistic that President Obama's stimulus program and cash for clunkers and first-time home buyers tax credit would restore strong economic growth. This year, the mood can only be described as sober up. Item, shock and awe. Over 2 out of 5 Americans, 43%, say the impact of the recession has been worse for them personally than they ever expected. 3 out of 5, 60%, of Generation Y, those in their 20s who backed Obama overwhelmingly for president in 2008, say that they expected the economy to have been fully recovered by now. So says MetLife American Dream Survey 2011. Item, suffocating the dream. Almost half of all baby boomers, 47% and 44% of Generation X, age 31 to 46, say the U.S. economy is blocking them from achieving their American dream. 43% of Generation Y blame the lack of job availability and stagnant wages for stifling their dream. Item, digging in for the long haul. 42% of all respondents, over 2 out of 5, in the MetLife survey think it will take 5 years before the economy improves. That 42% is up from 33% in 2010 and 23% in 2009. And get this, the number of all polled respondents who say the economy will never improve has doubled again, from 5% in 2009 to 11% in 2011.
Question, we are living in a time of economic sobriety. So where are Americans looking for financial security? Are they looking to the government? Are they looking to their families? Are they looking to themselves? Beth?
Oh, they're looking to themselves because there's nobody out there to help them. There's one generation, though, which is a little bit of the exception, and that's the Gen Y people. They are, 60% of them said that they receive money from family members just to pay bills. So they are obviously relying on their families.
What's that age group?
The Gen Ys, they're in their 20s, up to 31 years old.
Please continue.
Okay, so what's happening with the rest of the workers? So a quarter of them are basically one paycheck away from not being able to meet their financial obligations. 42% now are 2 missed paychecks away from not being able to pay their bills and being on the verge of financial ruin. That said, you know, there's been a savings increase. We know that. So these numbers, even though they are very sobering, are actually a little bit better than they were last year.
Clarence, with your far-darting vision, your far-darting eye, do you detect pessimism on the home front?
Well, what really intrigued me and encouraged me about your survey is that it showed that, I was talking about Beth, yeah, with MetLife, is that the younger people responding to these questions sounded a little more optimistic than the older people, which surprised me in a way, and especially on a couple of these. The old boomers like me were really grim, whereas the young people had an optimistic outlook. That was very reassuring to me. It's not surprising that Gen Y is more dependent on their parents because they have unfortunately, really, high unemployment rate right now. Even the college grads having a hard time getting placed. But in recent days, even some of the of Occupy Wall Street demonstrators who were unemployed at the beginning have found jobs. So it's important that you may be jobless now, but you won't be jobless in the future. That's the key, I think, to the American attitude that this is a dip, but it's going to recover in the long run.
Well, I think there's also a sense that what we're living through may be an historic restructuring of work. And I think people understand this is bigger than just an ordinary recession. And the Occupy Wall Street protests have shown a light on the wealth gap. And I think there is this diffuse anger. I guess I wouldn't call it pessimism. I think America's beginning to wake up. And a lot of people identify with some of the goals of the 99% that economically things are out of whack in this country.
You sound like you're a member of Occupy Wall Street, Eleanor. Have you been out there?
I've strolled around the tents and the kayaks.
You haven't spent the night over there.
I haven't spent the night.
You're simpatico with them.
I am simpatico with them.
Do you think it veers into a possible sedition rap?
No. I mean, I think they're
Are they trying to overthrow government?
Well, I think they don't have the right to have permanent encampments in public parks.
John,
but I think they will be back in various
John,
forms. They're not going to go away because the frustration is too widespread. They have too many sympathizers in all walks of life, including me and Clarence.
If Eleanor thinks Occupy Wall Street represents 99% of Americans, I think they were with the cops in New York that threw them out of Zuccotti Park, which they should have done weeks before. John, the interesting thing about your
can't kill the idea, though, Pat. You can't kill the idea.
Pat's trying to
She's
relive.
right. The wealth gap is being talked about now.
Clarence, tell them to behave themselves.
No, don't underestimate Pat's power to kill.
Tell them to behave themselves.
Here's
the interesting thing about your statistics. Your MetLife statistics. Earlier on, you told us there was a measure of confidence in their personal lives. A high measure of any number of them, but if you look at are they confident about the future of their country, 70% of Americans believe this country is in serious decline. 80% believe we're on the wrong course. They're happy about, maybe positive about their personal lives, not positive about their country.
We've got Beth with us today, and let's examine the role of insurance in all of this. This is an insurance level of participation. This is what struck me. Auto insurance, 29% of the American people are not covered. If the audience wants to see this, go to McLaughlin.com or go to MetLife.com, and you can see it there. 33% of the American people, 1 out of 3, is not covered by health insurance.
Yep. But they've got government insurance.
Home insurance, 48%, almost half are not covered. Life insurance, Pat has loads of this, 52% not covered. More than half not covered. Dental insurance, 57% not covered. Disability insurance, 83% not covered. Long-term care insurance. You got to get hold of this, Pat. 91, just joking, of course.
I'd take a look at your own portfolio.
91% not covered for long-term care insurance, and income annuities, 91% not covered.
So ask Beth, what should we run out and buy if we don't have it?
Well, you know, I'm a little biased. You should
Life
have it.
insurance.
You should have it all.
Okay.
But that chart, let me shed some light on that. So that is basically a snapshot of Americans' safety net. Okay, and you see auto insurance high. Why? Because if you want a car, you have to have car insurance. Okay, it's mandated. So let's really look more carefully at the rest of it. Do keep in mind, unlike you, the average American gets most of their protection benefits from the workplace. Okay, so that's why you see health insurance next, and then you see kind of a drop-off that's more related to home ownership. So if you have a home, you pretty much have to have homeowners insurance anyway, and then it starts to sort of deteriorate from there. But you know, at the workplace, it feels like medical is something so today and so urgent, and it is.
But Beth, aren't all these figures at record highs? You go back to the 1950s.
No,
I don't know if Clarence and I had auto insurance when we're driving around.
Why don't you bring it back to 1900?
Well, if they didn't exist.
You can get your arithmetic from there.
It's all been zero then. What I'm saying is there's enormous amounts of insurance. The industry is doing extremely well. I'll bet all of those are almost at record levels.
I want a bigger frame here, and Beth is, I think, on almost there. Is there any bigger frame to this? I mean, on the neglect of, I guess that's the word, of, say, life insurance.
Well, I would say that the lowest figures are disability and long-term. And in the old days, Pat, we had families and we all lived together and people were nearby. And
another form of social insurance.
You think
exactly.
Generation
the family.
Is there any, I'm asking this of Beth,
it's taking into account reality in a mobile population.
Is there any reason to believe that if you're strapped for money, that the first thing to go is your insurance payment, and that's the end of that?
Well, no, the average American doesn't have the insurance payments that the group here has. So it's not as financially onerous as you might imagine. We don't see people dropping off or dropping their policies. That's not what's going on. What's going on is that increasingly the urgency and expense of health insurance is kind of dampening, is taking up and crowding out some of the other protection products. And like I said, some of these other things seem like they can wait until tomorrow.
Exit question. Is a psychology of diminished expectation taking hold in America? You understand the question, Pat?
I think it's pretty clear, John. And I would say it probably has, as the recession has endured for 2 and 3 years. It may not have been there at the beginning, but I think there's a real pessimism out there in America about the future of the country and about personal problems and when and if ever this economy is going to recover.
Well, I think it's an acknowledgement of reality, and if I don't want to call it pessimistic, because again, I think the whole thrust of this survey is the resilience of America and Americans, and I'm not going to write off the country as easily as Pat does.
Ellen,
Right.
Beth.
Let's go back to where Pat started, which is with the origin of the American dream, which was about working hard and persevering. Somehow in the 50s and 60s, that turned into owning a home. So I think to the extent that things have a little bit gotten off that track is healthier, and we're returning more to the origins and, you know, kind of why we're here in the beginning.
Well, I think a big reason why there's a dramatic increase in pessimism right now is the same reason there was an increase back in the 70s when we had gasoline lines and runaway stagflation, that things were doing so well before. That by contrast, people have to ratchet back their expectations right now. But it doesn't mean people don't have hope that things will recover in the future, and we hope it'll be soon.
I think the pessimism that exists is because we're a little pessimistic about the rate of the recovery return, rather than in any personal terms. But the rate of when is the recovery going to be back, and why isn't it back? Issue 3, consumers too cautious?
I had a doctor this morning come in, and he said to me, boy, I'd love to buy a new suit, but in this kind of atmosphere, with this kind of uncertainty, I'm not going to do it. You can't say, oh, come on, spend the money, tomorrow's going to be better, because you really don't know if that's going to happen.
For the first 7 years of this new millennium, the American consumer was the driving force of global economic growth. The European Union also played a key role in that global growth. China achieved this annual 9% growth by feeding its products for purchase to the EU and the U.S. As for the U.S., 70% of our economy is powered today by U.S. consumer spending. That makes the combined individual and family budget in America the most important economic force in the world. So, with millions of Americans underwater on their mortgages and seeing no real increase in their incomes, this mighty American consumer engine is powering down. According to MetLife American Dream Survey 2011, 81% of Americans say they plan to trim, even cut, the family budget. This is how they are going to do the cutting. First, eat out less, 70%. Second, travel and vacation, less, 61%. Third, spend less on entertainment, 61%. Fourth, spend less on wardrobes. And bad news for Silicon Valley. 62% of Americans say they'll take a pass on purchasing the latest technology. In this ocean of austerity, the only life jacket is that Americans plan to spend an average of $764 on gifts this holiday season, up $50 from last year. So says the November Gallup poll.
Question, can the world economy recover fully if American consumers continue to rein in their spending? Beth.
It's a big world. And I will tell you also, in this country, the winners are going to be the ones, the retailers and the businesses that rebuild trust with their customers. 90% of Americans are saying it's more important than ever to understand the financial wherewithal of the company they're doing business with. And I think you see a lot of that in the Occupy Wall Street. We have 97% of Gen Yers saying that trust and transparency and honesty is more important in how they choose to do business with someone.
Well, it was an outgrowth of the Wall Street protest that one woman protested against Bank of America's fees, and Bank of America pulled back those fees. So, I mean, I think people are discovering that they can have a collective voice and that they can influence businesses and how they treat their customers.
You think those New York cops are mean?
I think most of them are terrific, but occasionally there's a tussle, and sometimes they use too much force, and sometimes, you know, it gets out of hand. But for the most part, the cops have done a good job.
Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
You know about the Occupy Wall Street movement.
Yeah, I've been over there. I've not slept out overnight, but
What have you done?
A number of them. I've talked to a number of them.
You've engaged them in free inquiry.
Is that your question?
No.
I'm a reporter.
My
I'm a
question
journalist.
is, are they going to last?
Are they going to last? You know, like I said before, it's the idea that matters. You know, what they physically do, and yeah, these are rambunctious kids who are angry about the way things are, and they've changed the national conversation. As far as I'm concerned, they've already won. They've achieved their goal, as it were. So yeah, I don't expect them to be sleeping out all winter long.
Have you seen any laundry lists from them about what they want? You hear kids shouting out,
have you seen a laundry
pay my
list?
College tuition.
Have you seen a laundry list from the Tea Party? You know?
Well, I think that laundry list is out there, isn't it?
No,
Sure.
no, the Tea Party has no
Party
laundry list.
wants
They have no
to elect
organization. They have no
Republicans
central structure. But no, elect
the
Republicans.
Tea Party should be an example.
Republicans usurped the Tea Party, and because they agreed politically. When you see,
so then it's evaporated
because
it became superfluous.
The Tea Party?
Yeah.
No, the Tea
Well,
Party.
the Republican Party's done it.
But it will. I predict that it will. I've already said that because they've largely achieved their goal. We'll see how powerful they are in this coming election.
John,
we already see fissures happening right now.
Do you think the
Tea Party? I mean, John, Occupy Wall Street. Most of them are being cleared out in Oakland, wherever you look at it.
Yeah.
Mayors have had enough of the nonsense.
What's the point?
The point
they
is
obstruct traffic.
They're going to be out of there for the winter, and they're going to be gone. But I would expect some of this to come back in the spring, and Barack Obama better not tie himself to those clowns because they'll be on. Too late.
You guys are tying them already.
That's where he belongs.
The opposition to Wall Street crowd has shifted the political narrative in this country for the white working class people who are not screaming about too much government and let's pay the deficit. They like their agenda. They think they've got a point.
They are more anti-Obama. The white working class has abandoned Obama. Many of them supported him. They are gone.
Beth, a forced prediction.
True or false? Home ownership, having children, and marriage works its way back into the American dream in the next 2 years.
If not, we're toast.
It works its way back, but longer than 2 years.
Longer than 2 years.
I think longer than 2 years.
True as stated. Gobble, gobble. Bye-bye.
Smart global investing requires expertise from the ground up. With insights from local experts across the world, we have a unique perspective on global investing. Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.